Well, I guess draft season's about over. No, but it's still brought to you by Moody's, the proud part of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmelk, joined by Tony Pauline, coming to you from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. So, Tony, we obviously had our last week, our big draft review. We went through every team. We did a good job. We got through it in like an hour and 15 minutes. I was very proud of us. We did an excellent job. Give me, as we kind of had, we're recording this on Thursday of last week. So if anything happens between now and this airs early next week, you can yell at us. Any other like final thoughts, Tony, about this draft or anything that surprised you when you had a chance to kind of put your feet up for a couple days, look at it, and kind of give it a one last review?
Well, I think we talked about one before this show started. Emil Wagner not being selected in the draft. I mean, we both saw him at the Shrine Bowl. He was terrific. He had an outstanding combine. He had a good senior season.
Yeah.
So something's going on there. I know somebody I share information with in the league. They had him as an early sixth round pick entering the draft. I had him going a little bit earlier. For him to fall out of the draft, something's going on. I don't know of any injury. Maybe teams are kind of think he's doesn't have the strength to play right tackle. Can he play left tackle? I don't know, but that was a bit of a shocker. Wagner, who we both loved at the Shrine Bowl, not getting selected.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised by that too, Tony. I'm with you. All right, so this draft coming up in 2027 is a little less than a year away. So we're going to do our look ahead to the 2027 draft class. Now, I just want to frame this properly, okay? This is basically a glorified watch list, right? This is who Tony and I, based on what we've seen, and we haven't seen all of these guys in detail because we're two men and we only have so many hours in the day. But we've done some work on them. Tony has talked to his people around the league for, who agents are preparing for next year, teams are preparing for next year, in terms of who are going to be really highly sought of. So we're going to just kind of roll through some position groups here, one by one. Antonio will go through some of the top guys. I have a couple guys in those position groups as well. We'll give you some nuggets on them, and then we will move on to the next group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tony did volunteer. He really wanted to do a mock draft, actually. He wanted to assign these guys to teams because that makes a lot of sense at this time of year before the season's played, and he was really psyched to do a mock draft a year ahead of time and then get criticized for it next year, but I decided to let him off the hook because Tony loves those like year ahead mock drafts because they're so very useful, right, Tony?
The irony is this: the New York Jets could potentially have the first pick of the draft next year and select Dante Moore. And if you follow any of my reporting at Essentially Sports, you know that I was told outright that landing spot was a big factor in Dante Moore's decision to go back to the University of Oregon. And that landing spot likely would have been with the New York Jets with the second selection. Now the Jets have, 3 first-round picks. They have the first pick next year. They'll have their choice of quarterbacks. It'll be ironic because remember, Dante Moore still has eligibility left after the season. So what happens? That's at least something to keep an eye on. That's a conversation point that's gonna happen moving forward. I tell you this though, with all these quarterbacks and the perception that next year is going to be a great quarterback class, it makes that mock draft easier. Because
it
all
does.
you do
You're
is
right.
you just plug in a half a dozen quarterbacks into the first round with teams that need quarterbacks.
No, Tony, that's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that. But so I went around your rankings and I went through 3 different like look ahead to 2027s. I looked at Dane Brugler's, I looked at Pro Football Focus's, and I looked at Todd McShay's. And between those 3 groups, Tony, I had 9 different quarterbacks that people had in their first round. So I'm just going to list the quarterbacks for the people, and then we can talk about some of the guys. Some of the guys we've already talked about because they were guys that we thought might come out this year. Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers, C.J. Carr, Sam Levitt, Julian Sayin, Darian Mensah. The sleeper one is the transfer from North Texas, Drew Messamaker. I believe where did he end? He ended up going up to
Oklahoma State from North
Oklahoma State. That's what it was. Thank you.
Right.
And then Jada Mayava, the quarterback out there on the West Coast. Yeah. So those are the 9 guys that I saw in those different drafts. I think it's a little aggressive for some of them.
Yep.
But why don't you go through the guys that you think people should really have their eyes on here as potential first rounders in next year's draft at the quarterback position?
Let me go. The 2 guys that I don't have on my list, and I'll tell you why, are Sam Levitt he just doesn't have a big arm. He's not a big guy.
I agree.
He's not a guy that gets the ball downfield. You know, he announced he left. He was leaving Arizona State, and the coach basically said, "Thanks, but don't let the door hit you on the way out." And, you know, when you lose a quarterback like that, you should be very upset. And then the USC quarterback, Maeva, he has a great arm. He makes some incredible throws, but 50% of the time, you don't know where the ball is going to end up. I mean, really, the reason though some of those USC receivers were so highly rated was they were making outstanding receptions because they're leaving their feet, they're adjusting backwards, they're grabbing the ball out of the air to catch Maeva's, errant passes. Physically, he grades out as an early selection. He made the right decision going back to school, needs a lot of work on his game. So who do I have? My number one quarterback, again, I'm going against the trend. Everybody loves Arch Manning. I think it's Dante Moore. He's my number one quarterback. He would have been the second quarterback selected had he entered the draft, as we just talked about. He has to, improve his game. He goes back. He's going to get more experience. I think it was he had 19 starts, so he'll get over that 20-start barrier that a lot of people like. Parcells, I think, wanted 33 starts. So Dante Moore is my number one quarterback. I actually have Darian Mensah, the Duke quarterback who's transferred to Miami, as my number two quarterback. I have him over Arch Manning. I think he's more of an RPO quarterback. He's got a great arm. I think he did a tremendous job at Duke last year that had limited numbers of targets for him to work with, receivers and tight ends. I like his accuracy. I love his physical skills. I see nothing but upside. He goes to Miami now. He's going to have better skill players to throw the ball to. Even with the graduation or the two offensive tackles being selected in the draft, as well as Inez Cooper by the Jets in the late rounds, he's going to have a better offensive line in front of him. So things are pointing in the right direction for Mensah. Then I have Arch Manning, who, give him credit, he was a much better quarterback in the second half of 2025 than he was in the first half of the season. But while he's got great physical skills, I still think he needs a lot of work on his game. Stares down the primary target too much for me, needs to improve his pass placement. There's a lot of ability there, but there's a lot of work to be done. Then C.J. Carr, the quarterback from Notre Dame. Let's see if he can build upon an outstanding 2025 campaign.
Yeah, he was really impressive to me as a pocket passer last year, Tony. I thought C.J. Carr, watching those Notre Dame games, I see the promise with him. Now, to your point, the next couple guys we're going to talk about here, there has to be development and significant steps. But, man, I liked what I saw from C.J. Carr and Julian Sayin last year at Ohio State. So those are the two kind of guys that I think could emerge and rise if they continue to build on what they did in previous years.
The one thing that concerns me about Sayin is he's not very big.
Yep.
He doesn't have a huge arm. He kind of struggles to withstand the rush. We saw that in the Indiana game. We saw that especially against Miami. I think a lot of that has to do with the play calling. I mean, they're having him line up out of the shotgun, then step back, which makes the pass rush angles a little bit easier. And now it's going to be Jeremiah Smith or bust for him because Tate's gone, Claire's gone, Kazmarik's gone. I like Julian Sayin. I just think the size and the physical skills are a little bit limited to the rest of them. I still have hope for Lenora Sellers. I have Lenora Sellers rated higher than Julian Sayin. Great in 2024, a real dud last season. I thought, we talked about Drew Allar at the end of the 2024 season. We both thought that he should have transferred out of Penn State. We didn't. It led to ruin for him. I thought the same thing about Lenora Sellers. But they bring in Kendall Briles. They do some things to change that offense there. We'll see if it works out. You mentioned.
Hey, by the way, Tony, just for the record, South Carolina has a lot of talent, man. Yeah, like you looked at last year, they have a lot of talented players. So if you can get the coaching figured out there, there is potential. But yeah, look, if I'm Sellers and like Miami's throwing money at me, like I don't know how you say no to that. But to each his own.
Right. Trinidad Chambliss, people seem to have forgotten about him. Yep. I really thought he was probably, after Fernando Mendoza, he was probably as good as any quarterback in college football last year, and I think he projects well. I say keep an eye on Caden Veltkamp from Florida Atlantic. He's a Western Kentucky transfer. You want to talk about size and arm strength, throws a lot of touchdown passes, but he also throws a lot of interceptions. Which has got to be rectified. He's got to turn that around, but he had some great games. He's got NFL skills. I think the X factor in all this, we go down the list. I'm a Levea of UCLA. He's got to improve. John Mateer, who, in my opinion, is going to be this year's version of Garrett Nussmeier. And really, the X factor is going to be Brendan Sorsby, the Cincinnati transfer who's supposed to be at Texas Tech. A lot of scouts really like him. What's going to happen? Is Sorsby going to have his eligibility rescinded because of the off-the-field issues with the gambling? If he does, is there going to be a supplemental draft for him? If he gets that all figured out and he has a great year at Texas Tech, we're going to be talking about a potential, top 45, another top 45 quarterback, or potentially another top 45 quarterback.
Yeah, that's a mess. I'm not even going to touch that. I mean, I don't think anyone has any idea what that's going to look like. So,
right.
No, I'm with you. And then that Mestamaker, I think he's the other guy that's a wild card. Is a guy that moves up for all, from North Texas, which is not a big program. So, We'll see. It looks like it's going to be a better quarterback class, but we've heard that before, and then it all falls apart. So, a lot of this would be how these guys continue to develop and improve heading into their next year of college football. Well, let's jump to running back here, Tony, and just right away you could tell this is a better running back class, right, than it was this year after Jeremiah Love. A couple guys that I know I've seen, like Ahmad Hardy out of Missouri is a player that I think is a really good player. Quan Lacey out of Ole Miss, really good player. Justice Haynes, who went back to Michigan, he's a guy we can have a conversation about. And then Jaden Baugh is another running back that I've seen mentioned by some people that could sneak into the first round.
Yeah, and Mark Fletcher, I don't think he's a first rounder, but Mark Fletcher, I mean, did wonders for the Miami program. I think the thing is none of these guys compare to Jeremiah Love.
No.
You're not looking at any of these guys as top 10, maybe they're not even top 15 picks. Maybe Hardy from Missouri or Lacey of Mississippi, who have good size, but they're very explosive backs. They're multi-purpose ball carriers. Hardy is a game breaker. Lacey's a terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. Fletcher is a guy that is a pounder and a grinder on the inside. You mentioned Hayes, who didn't have the season expected last year because he was injured. But when he was healthy, you go back to the Oklahoma game, he took that game over. Darius Taylor out of Minnesota is a guy I like a lot. I think he would have been a day 2 selection, or would have been in the conversation for a day 2 selection had he entered the draft. A lot of these guys are coming off injuries. If they get it back, if they get it straight, and a lot of these guys have transferred, it could be a strong class, although you're not going to have the exceptional talent, whether it be Jeremiah Love from this past draft or even Ashton Jeanty from 2025.
So I think, Tony, my question then for you would be, while none of them touches Jeremiah Love, and I agree with that, how many of these guys you think would be ahead of your running back 2 from this past year?
Right now, I'd say the top 2, Ahmad Hardy and Quan Lacey, because of they got terrific size, program size, but still, I mean, Jadarian Price wasn't a really big guy, and I think they are going to test better and run faster, and they play to that speed.
I'm with you. All right, let's jump to wide receiver, Tony. And this is one of the groups that I watched a lot of before we did this show. And, man, there are a bunch of 6'3" guys that can move. Yeah. And I'm going to start with Jeremiah Smith. I feel like we need to talk about him separately just because how good he is. And you guys hear a lot of fawning over the next 12 months as we prepare for the 2027 NFL draft. And it's completely justified with this guy. He is a monster, Tony. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy with that combination of size, speed, route running proficiency, side-to-side quickness. Like, he does it all. Like, this is like a, Calvin Johnson level, not quite that big and tall, I get it, but that good of a wide receiver. I watched him. I was completely blown away about how good he was, and he's going to be the first wide receiver taken, barring an injury this year, and it's just a question of whether or not he's the top pick, a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick, where he slots in behind those quarterbacks.
The funny thing is outside of the top 2 or 3 picks, he becomes value, and it's it's sort of a similar situation to Arvell Reese this year. For different reasons. Jeremiah Smith could be the 5th or 6th pick of the draft in 2027 because so many people are clamoring to get one of those quarterbacks if the quarterbacks play the expectations. So the way Arvell Reese was great value for the Giants with the 5th pick, Jeremiah Smith could be great value for somebody, after those top 2 or 3 picks. And the thing about Jeremiah Smith that's going to be very interesting to watch, I agree with your breakdown totally. but now he is the only guy there at Ohio State. Yes, they'll bring in some talented receivers, but 2 years ago, he had Emeka Buka and Carnell Tate.
Yep.
This year, he had Carnell Tate and Max Clare and Will Kazmarek. Now it's going to be Julian saying it's sort of like the way it was 3 year, whatever it was when Marvin Harrison was there. Everything's going to be directed towards Jeremiah Smith. When I say everything directed, the majority of the targets, the majority of the coverage, you're going to see safety shaded over to him. And I agree with you. So now it's going to be a bigger challenge for him. Now, and he's always come up big in those situations for Ohio State. It's going to be an even bigger one for you. Great receiver. I think it'll be one of those situations like Marvin Harrison where moving towards the draft, the guy probably won't do any testing at all.
Oh, no, I don't expect to get one test on him zero. It'll be zero.
But he's been a great receiver for Ohio State. Going to be a big opportunity and a big challenge, I believe, for him this coming season, because while he's always been the man for the Buckeyes, he is the only man for the Buckeyes when you kind of break it down. Granted, they will have, they'll put in a couple of the receivers, but we're not going to see the talent of Carnell Tate or Emeka Buka.
We'll see. Ohio State, I know they lost Brian Hartline, but they're very good at developing wide receivers. So I'm curious to see who emerges at that wide receiver number 2. All right, let's jump to the rest of the group here, Tony. A bunch of guys and a couple of big transfers in this group coming up, I think, in the top 5. Charlie Becker is the guy, if you watch college football playoffs this year, he's the guy that did not transfer. He's in Indiana. He'll come back. Big back shoulder, contested catch wide receiver. I'm curious to see how fast he runs, but a really good player. And then the 2 transfers, Tony, that have me kind of excited. Cam Coleman going from Auburn to Texas, right? If I'm not mistaken, is that correct?
Correct.
Not super productive at Auburn, but then again, that's Auburn. They didn't exactly have a dynamic passing game, but man, big, tall, fast. And then Nick Marsh, who's going from Michigan State to join Charlie Becker at Indiana, another 6'3" guy that is really jittery and twitchy with the ball in his hand. So those to me are the next 3. Curious to see what you think and who else you would put in this kind of watch list.
Cam Coleman was a guy that when the Auburn offense was clicking and they had a lot of quarterback issues there, he was a game-controlling receiver. He was a big, physical situation where the defense knew the ball was going in his direction and they couldn't stop him. I mean, some of his games when he was on were incredibly fun to watch. Now he goes to Texas with better quarterback play, with a more well-rounded offense. And I would expect a big season from him, which is why he's my number 2 wide receiver, number 3 wide receiver. Charlie Becker, you don't have to watch it's not just the playoffs. I mean, he was great against Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember that game.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically his coming out game. And, you say it's going to be interesting to see. He's only a third-year junior, so he could have eligibility after the 2026 season if he wants it. But he made a lot of plays downfield, and he's got excellent size for Indiana. Granted, now it's going to be a different quarterback. As Josh Hoover is the quarterback. The former TCU is with the Hoosiers now. So it's not going to be Fernando Mendoza throwing the ball. Nick Marsh, big guy, very productive last year at Michigan State. Another team that had poor quarterback play. He goes to Indiana. He's going to get great coaching now. I would expect, a big year from him. Local guy, KJ Duff from at Rutgers is a guy to watch. Another taller receiver, more of a possession contested throw receiver. And his teammate or his former teammate from Rutgers is now a Cal. And I think he's another guy to keep an eye on.
Couple of names I'll throw out there. TJ Moore is a player I know some people are excited about. Mario Craver at Texas A&M. He's like the miniature, like really fast guy. He's like 165 and 5'9", but man, he can motor. And then Ryan Coleman Williams. So I guess he's like added a last name into the mix. Obviously, he had that huge moment a couple years ago. Did a really nice job in that playoff game for Alabama. He's only 6 foot tall, Tony. He's like 178. He's twitchy. He had 10 drops last year. Yep. So I see the talent, but I think there has to be some honing still of that game for him to be talked about as a potential first-round pick.
The drops were a big issue for him last year, but he's explosive. He is a game changer. His teammate Isaiah Horton. We'll expect a big year from him. Amare Thomas out of Houston, who we spoke about throughout the season. He's another guy to keep an eye on. And then the return, hopefully, we hope the return of Evan Stewart to Oregon. I
Yeah.
mean, Evan Stewart was a guy who was incredibly explosive at Texas A&M, transferred to Oregon, hurt his knee, I believe in August. It may have been earlier than that. I may need to be checked on that. Missed all of last season. There was talk he could come back late in the playoffs. Never did. He returns with Dante Moore throwing him the ball. So if he's able to return to the form that we saw in 2024, you're talking about another early round potential top 45 pick at the position.
Draft season presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Decode risk, unlock opportunity. Learn more at Moody's.com. All right, Tony, let's go to tight end. The three guys I've seen talked about, I did not watch any of these guys, so I'm going to lean on you for them. Jamari Johnson, another Oregon Duck that's going to be replacing Kenyon Sadiq. Trades Green, and then Terrence Carter Jr. are the three names that I've seen thrown out there.
Green he looks like a power forward on the football field. I mean, you can't miss him just because of his physical dimensions, and he's turning into a real good football player. He was good with the multitude of quarterbacks that LSU put on the field there. So, I don't know how he's super fast, but he can catch the ball, and he is just an imposing target on the football field. Jeremy Johnson, he's got some upside. I don't know if people really like him as a player or they're like, this is the next guy in line
Right.
for Oregon after Terrence Ferguson and then Kenyon Sadiq. He's got some upside, but he's got to develop his game. A couple of guys I have them listed at Iowa State, but they're now at Penn State. They followed the coach over, Ben Brammer, and Gabe Burkle, who were terrific tight ends in that scheme at Iowa State. They're now at Penn State, who also has their own really good tight end returning, Andrew Rapalea. These guys are more maybe potential late day two selections right now. Mason Minnie, a smaller move tight end out of Cal. Remember, Jack Andrews transferred out of Cal. Mason Minnie stayed there, had a terrific season last year. Guy who I like, keep an eye on, Texas Tech, Terrence Carter Jr. He's a guy who I believe absolutely could move into the top 45 selections. He's athletic. He's a terrific pass catcher. They like to throw the ball to the receivers, so he didn't get a lot of targets. But when he did, he caught the ball exceptionally well, and he's a solid blocker.
All right, let's jump over to the offensive line here, Tony. A lot of potential offensive tackles.
Yes.
Jordan Seaton is somebody he's LSU, if I remember correctly, right? He's a guy that people are excited about. Trevor Gooseby from Texas.
Right.
What do you think of them and whoever else you really like at the offensive tackle spot, which it could be a big year in that position next year?
Huge year, especially if the guys who fell off in 2025 get their mojo back and play well in 2026, which I'll talk about in a second. I mean, I think Gooseby did himself a favor by returning to college to continue to develop his game. He's got high upside, sort of like the way Cameron Williams probably should have returned to college. Gooseby did, and he has the possibilities to be an early selection. Seaton is big. He's fluid. He's got good athleticism off the edge. Andrew Sprague of Michigan is another guy who's got outstanding size and upside. Andrew Sieverveld, the left tackle at Ohio State, he's one of those guys I think we're going to be talking about, college left tackle who projects to the right side. And then, Michigan's got a couple guys. They got another guy by the name of Blake Frazier, another third-year sophomore. They filled in for Evan Link, who was hurt early in the season. And I believe it was the Oklahoma game that Evan Link went down. And Evan Link himself is an outstanding tackle prospect. So what I've seen is right now the game plan is to put Evan Link, who was an outstanding left tackle in 2024 and the opening part of 2025 for Michigan before he went down with injury, to guard. And that can be an outstanding offensive line with great prospects. And then Carter Smith, the left tackle from Indiana. A lot of people already talking about Carter Smith, but they're talking about him at guard. I don't know that he's got the ability to stay at left tackle at the next level. And then you're talking about guys that kind of fell off last year. Xavier Chaplin, who had a terrible year at Auburn. He now goes to Florida State. If he gets his game back to where it was 2023 and 2024 when he was at Virginia Tech, he's a potential first-round selection. Ryan Baer, guy from Pittsburgh. A lot of people, including myself, thought entering the 2025 season, he had first round potential, did not play well, made the right decision going back to Pittsburgh. Again, if he gets it back, you're talking about an early round left tackle. A lot of good potential at left tackle in 2027, which is the opposite of what we just experienced this past draft.
Any interior lineman, Tony, that really jumped out to you? Centers or guards?
Centers, no. Guards, Caden Green, the left tackle from Missouri who projects inside. He's an explosive guy. He was a guy, I think, that if he had entered this year's draft, would have been in the conversation for late first round pick. We saw Caden Rutledge, and then we saw Chase Basantis come off the board early. Caden Green would have fit in right there. Cade Piper of Iowa, an explosive guard that is very effective in motion. He's a guy I think is also, you're talking about top 45 if things go as expected for him.
All right, let's jump to the defensive side of the ball here, Tony. We'll go to defensive tackle first. I was really impressed when I watched Ahmad Moten. I thought he has the combination of size. He's well over 300 pounds. He's boxy. You can't move him in the run game. And he's got some twitch to get upfield. He was easily my top defensive tackle, Tony. And I think if he continues to get better, he has some Byron Murphy traits going on that we saw go to Seattle a couple years ago. And I think if he keeps getting better, we could be talking top 10 pick for him.
Made life easy for Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor because he was collecting so many double-team blocks with his teammate on the inside there. He's strong. He's explosive. Leverage lineman in the sense that he plays with terrific pad level. I want to see more of him. Yep. I happen to like Amari Washington of Oregon, who we all thought would have been
my number 2 guy.
Would have been a first-round pick had he entered the draft. He decided to go back, but still, I like Washington better than the kid who was taken in the first round from Oregon. I know you're going to help me with the name here in 2025.
Oh, Jamari Caldwell.
There you go. No, wait. Caldwell was
he was a third-round pick, I think, right?
Who was they had somebody out there. Didn't they have another tackle that was taken in the first round, I believe?
I'll check it out. I think you're right. But what I love about Washington, by the way, Tony, is at 330 pounds, that dude could move. Like, he's got legit feet. Like, he's quick.
Explodes off the snap. I mean, a relatively athletic guy. He's got great it's not just power. It's a combination of explosion and power off the ball. Derek Harmon is the guy that I was
Oh, Derek Harmon, of course. Yeah, I loved him. He was good.
Yeah, and I think Washington can be better because he's a little bit bigger. Will Eccles of Mississippi, David Stone of Oklahoma is someone to watch. Everyone talked about their pass rusher or that R. Marcus, whatever, R. Spears Thomas. Stone made his life easier. Now Stone, he loses his 2 compatriots. One who was drafted, one who was signed as a undrafted free agent. So he's going to be the guy consistently on the inside. He's not going to have the benefit of being rotated. What's his name? The kid from Bear Alexander, former USC player who transferred to Oregon. People 2 years ago were talking about him as a potential first-round pick. Really played well in spurts last year at Oregon. If he's able to pick up the tempo of his game and play on an every down base and basically play to his level of ability on every down basis, again, you're talking about a potential top 60 selection.
All right, don't forget, folks, that draft season is presented by Moody's, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Uniting the brightest minds that turn today's risks into tomorrow's opportunities. Learn more on Moody's.com. All right, Tony, let's go to the edge spot here. Another spot where I think we're going to have a lot of players potentially go in the first round. Again, we're talking premium positions, premium players. And while I think everyone keeps talking about Colin Simmons out of Texas, Tony, and I understand why, he's a really good player, I really like Dylan Stewart, to be honest with you. I think he's got a little bit more power to him. I think he's got a bigger frame to add weight. He's really violent with his hands and the way he finishes. But I could easily see both those guys potentially being top 5 or top 10 picks.
And let me tell you something. If you like Stewart in 2025, you would have loved him off the 2024 film because he was a better player, like Lenora Sellers, a better player in 2024 than he was in 2025. And he's a guy that can come out of a three-point stance. He can stand over tackle. He's very athletic. He can bend the edge and immediately alter his angle of attack. Has got incredible amount of upside. I absolutely agree with you. The kid from Texas, I like, but the kid from Texas had a lot of talent around him, where Stewart was basically almost a one-man show at South Carolina. I love his upside. Quincy Rhodes, who we talked about, more of a pure, hand in the dirt type of guy who had a terrific season coming out of nowhere last year for Arkansas, decides to go back to school. He's got an outstanding, incredible amount of upside. Damon Wilson, who goes from
Yep.
Missouri to Miami, who's embroiled in sort of a conflict with Georgia right now about his transferring. But the fact is this, you put on the Missouri film and you see number 8 impacting plays. We talked about Zion Young, who was, an early second-round choice. Wilson is more of a stand-up guy who impacts the game in a variety of ways. Had a terrific season last year at Missouri. Now goes to Miami. Miami, as we see again, spending a lot of money on those transfers. 2 more Big Ten guys, actually 3 more Big Ten guys. Anthony Smith, who we talked about a
Yep.
lot last year on this podcast, a lot last season, I should say, on this podcast. Well, it will also be last year, right? Who's more of your hand in the dirt, potential 2-gap defensive end, maybe a guy in a 4-man front that's a playmaker, can rush the passer, consistently penetrating the line of scrimmage. Kenyatta Jackson, who everybody was waiting till the very end. Was Kenyatta Jackson going to enter the draft, 2026 draft, to go back to school? If he enters the 2026 draft, he's probably in the conversation as late first-round pick. Goes back to school, has the potential to be a mid first-round pick. And Mateo Ugalele out of Oregon, another terrific pass rusher that can stand over tackle, come out of a 3-point stance. Didn't have the year that was expected. Signs a nice big NIL deal. He also has first-round potential.
And then a brother of Princely Uman Mielen, who came out a couple years ago, his brother Princewell Uman Mielen is coming out next year. So another guy to keep an eye on at that edge spot.
The other guy is Anton Saka of Northwestern, who transferred to, I have him here as Northwestern, and I apologize. I keep these guys in my database at the old schools, so when I go through the summer film work, I don't miss them. But he was a guy who was great in 2024, kind of fell off the cliff. Initially did what a lot of players do. Said he was going to enter the draft, then got the NIL, didn't sign with an agent, got the NIL deal he wanted. I forgot. I think he's playing at Texas A&M this season. I have to be checked on that if you want to hold on a second. But Saka, the former pass rusher from Northwestern, is at Texas A&M this year. He's a guy to keep an eye on.
All right, yeah. I mean, on ESPN, he's still listed as Northwestern, so that's what I would have to listen to that too, Tony, to be totally honest with you. All right, any off-ball linebackers that really jump out? I know one guy I've seen listed a lot is the Kingston Valuamuasa. I think I have that correct. I haven't worked on these pronunciations yet, but anyone else an off-ball linebacker that has you excited?
That's first round right there. I mean, especially the Kingston. Yeah, I guess. Two guys to keep an eye on. Suntarine Perkins out of Mississippi, who was highly rated last year coming into the season, was kind of hit or miss early on, then really turned it on late in the year. And then Ulave of he's now at BYU, listed at California. He was a terrific player, terrific off-ball linebacker. The past 2 years at Cal, he takes his game to BYU, has a bit of Jacob Rodriguez in his game in the sense that he's 6'1", 230 pounds, but he's fast, he's fierce, and he's great against the run.
All right, let's go to cornerback, Tony. And I think Leonard Moore out of Notre Dame, I still remember at the combine, listening to some of these pressers, these receivers are saying that he's like the best corner that they've played. Like, to me, he would have been the first corner off the board in this year's draft. He's big, he's physical, he's good. And then he's a guy that I think is a potential top 5, top 10 pick.
If he continues to play, remember, coming into the season, everybody loved Christian Gray of Notre Dame.
Yep.
He was going to be an early first-round pick. And he kind of fell off, and Leonard Moore, picked up the pace. I like Leonard Moore, but the history has been Notre Dame has kind of got that history of Ohio State cornerbacks in the sense that, the year before, the season before they enter the draft, they don't have their best season. I like Moore. I like his upside. I like his skills now. Let's see if he can continue on with that play. I like Jair Hill of Michigan. I've liked them the past 2 seasons. Michigan's had a lot of really good cornerbacks. I think Zaire Hill is next. And then there's a couple guys, Xavier Brown out of Alabama. A lot of people like Kelly Jones out of Mississippi State, Chris Peel from Syracuse. These are guys to keep an eye on that have to really up their game. Judge Collier from South Carolina is the guy we talked about, Brandon Cisse, and then Jalen Kilgore. Collier is a guy who's got terrific size. A.J. Harris, who transfers out of Penn State. Don't know exactly where he transferred to. Zion Tracy, who was a terrific nickelback prospect, again from Penn State. He did stay at Penn State. These are guys to keep an eye on.
All right, and then finally, Tony, how about safety?
Hang on a second. He's at Indiana. A.J. Harris is at Indiana this year.
How did Indiana, by the way, did Indiana clean up in the transfer portal? I don't pay attention to that stuff. Did Indiana do a really good job with that?
The thing about it is he gets the guys that he wants. You want to improve your game, you go to Indiana because, as we said, right. Cincinnati is such a great coach. So he basically is able to pick and choose, who he gets. And last year, with Mendoza, with some of the other guys, you got players who were potential first-round picks. I think he's getting now guys that were already considered first-round picks and develop them from there. As far as the safeties, it's an okay class. I like Amari Farrell from, by the way, Indiana. He's not a transfer, though. He's been at Indiana past couple of years. He's big, he's physical, he's fast. He's got to improve his routes, his angles, because he's always taking bad angles, taking himself from the action. Jamel Johnson of TCU is a guy who was an outstanding two-way safety against the run, play against as well as the pass. TJ Metcalf, the Arkansas transfer from Michigan, two transfers. Khalil Barnes, who played at Clemson last year. Earl Little, who played at Florida State last year. Little initially announced he was entering the draft, and then he decided to go back to school. He transferred. Those are two guys to keep an eye on.
All right, Tony, before you say goodbye, and we take like a 3-month break here. Close to 4-month break, actually. Give me just a 20,000-foot view of this draft class next year and what you would say about it.
Everybody's going to be talking about the quarterbacks, even through the season. As when we get back on the air in August, the quarterbacks. Keep an eye on the left tackles, because if this tackle class pans out as it has the potential to, especially the left tackles, I think left tackle could be a really strong class in 2027.
Tony, always fun, my friend. What do you have planned for the next 3 months? What's your R&R plan? What do you got?
Well, I'm kind of going crazy here with all this extra time on my hands. I don't know what to do. Eventually, I got to cut the lawn because my lawnmower has been broken. So, I might start my film earlier than usual just because I'm going a little stir crazy here. We'll see what happens. But listen, I always start with the Mac. It's traditional that I start my summer film with the Mac. Now it's easy because it used to take a couple of weeks. Now it takes 2 or 3 days because no one's going to Mac schools anymore. Granted, we saw Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, but those are few and far between. The thing about the summer film work, and I'm sure you'll find this, is make sure you get the guys at the right school, because you don't want to say do North Texas or do East Carolina or school like that, and then find out that the player is highly rated, in Syracuse, who played at one of those schools last season. So the transfer portal makes it a little bit more challenging than in the past.
It does. There will be an amusement park trip at some point in my future. I'm not sure if it's going to be Disney or not. It might be Hershey Park. We'll see.
Whoa. Disney or Hershey Park?
Hershey Park's the backup.
That's like saying a ham sandwich or a full rack of ribs. I mean, I like Hershey Park. I've been there. It's a lot of fun. But, there's the difference between Hershey Park and Disney World is like saying, I'm going to cover the draft from my office versus I'm going to go on site and cover the draft. And if you go to Disney, you got to call me. I mean, I've been to Disney every year since 2010 with my daughter. Disney Cruises, Disney World, everything. So the only thing I probably know more than Disney is maybe the draft and Led Zeppelin. So you basically, you've got an in-house travel advisor for you, a travel agent for you.
And that's why Hershey Park is the backup. We are committed to doing Disney with another family, so we're trying to figure out the schedule so both of us can go together. So we're trying to figure that out.
You're staying on site, I hope? You're staying on site?
We have not planned that for her yet. I'm actually have to get on a phone call this weekend with that individual, and we'll see if we can figure something out this summer before the Giants training camp kicks off and everything, or maybe even the bye week next football season. That is also a possibility. Maybe like a 4-day trip over the weekend at the bye week. So we're trying to figure that out. But we have that. Of course, I'm locked in on my Knicks playoff basketball. They got to close out the Hawks. We're
Boy,
going this Thursday night.
you're really going off deep here. So I know. I mean, we're taking a cruise in August because my daughter is now dancing in the Broadway shows on the Royal Caribbean. So we're going to be flying out west to take a cruise to watch her dance. And she's
Where does
doing a
the
good
cruise
job.
go?
Well, the one that we're going on goes through Mexico.
All right.
Port the Love Boat. Think the Love Boat, Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta. But she's on this cruise for 9 months, and starting in September, she cruises out in the Far East. She goes to places around Japan,
Oh, that's fun.
China, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea. So yeah. And then she gets home in December, and hopefully she'll audition for the Rockettes next year because she's much more advanced and in a much better position to hopefully be high kicking on the stage at Radio City.
Just make sure she stays out of the Strait of Hormuz over the next few months, Tony. I think we just got to keep her out of there, and I think we'll be okay.
Thank you for that because I mean, unfortunately, I keep my eye on world events too much more than I like to, and yeah, that is something that I'm constantly concerned about.
She'll be fine, Tony. These cruise ships are massive. She'll be okay. Proud Papa. I love it.
Yeah.
Tony, good stuff, my friend. Enjoy the next 3 months, and we'll catch up in August.
Enjoy Disney if you go.
I will. That is the final draft season of the 2026 year draft class, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. For Tony Pauline, I'm John Schmelk. Draft season is presented by Moody's, a proud part of the New York Giants. Coming to you from the Hackensack Marine Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. For Tony Pauline, I am John Schmelk. We'll see you in August, everybody.